What's good, family? I hope everyone's 2021 is off to a good start. Let's hope this year is better than last year. We all know the drama that happened last year, but we got 363 more days and anything can happen. We're already seeing some drama right now. So who knows? I got a special video for you guys, but first, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you click that notification button so that you can get a notification each and every time I upload a video. And comment below. Tell me what you think. Do you like the content? Do you want more of this content? Do you want me to expand into more topics? Let me know what you think. This video is for my brothers and sisters in South Africa. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to Johannesburg. Josie is where it is at. If you choose to go to South Africa, please do me a favor and stop at Johannesburg. You will not regret it. And it deals with African Americans and the Zulu tribe. Now, this is very interesting considering the fact that most African Americans descend from West and Central Africa, and the Zulus are in Southern Africa. But due to the Black transnational solidarity and the Pan-Africanist movement, we have learned from each other. I got two articles. One deals with Hampton University and the other one is on JSTOR. Now you can get access to these articles and journals on JSTOR. If you have a Gmail, all you have to do is sign up with your Gmail account, and therefore you will have access to tons of articles that are not seen on the web that you may not have learned from school. I highly suggest you use JSTOR. And it's called Zulu Abroad, Cultural Representation and Educational Experiences of Zulus in America, 1880 to 1945. Written by Robert Trent Vinson and Robert Edgar, Washington University, St. Louis, and Howard University. This article broadens the study of cultural representation of the Zulu from within South Africa to the United States by exploring the experiences of Zulu performers and students in America between 1880 and 1945. In American exhibitions, carnivals, circuses, and fairs, whites celebrated and reacted Anglo-Saxon military victories over darker-skinned peoples with stark contrast of civilized whites and subjugated uncivilized Zulus. African Americans struggling to secure basic political and socio-economic rights in America had more varied and ambiguous views of Zulus. Some impersonated Zulus for monetary gain and to fashion new identities. Others created cultural distances between themselves and Africans by advancing stereotypical images of Zulus as exotic African primitives, while politically minded blacks portrayed Zulu resistance to British aggression modeled for diasporic black political activities. And in that sentence alone, further background information, the Zulus pulled up an upset. It is called the Battle of Isidwana. I highly suggest you read into that. It is a very interesting battle. It was where the Zulus upset the British, and it was during the Anglo-Zulu War in 1879. Unfortunately, the Zulus would lose later that year, and the Zulu kingdom would come to an end and be annexed by the British in 1883. But the fact that the Zulus were able to defeat the British, one of the most powerful European armies and one of the most powerful militaries in the world at the time, was definitely an inspiration to many who would be under colonial rule and for African Americans who were dealing with racism and white supremacy in America. Meanwhile, Zulu students in America countered negative stereotypes with their intelligence and industriousness, self-consciously framing their continued acquisition of education, Christianity, and entrepreneurial capitalism as part of the larger goal of collective racial uplift of their benighted brethren in Africa. So I did a video before. It deals with debunking the myths of African Americans and Liberian history. And one of the concepts that I was talking about was called classical black nationalism. It's from the American Revolution to Marcus Garvey. And one of the tenets of classical black nationalism was the creation of an African American state, but also this idea that Africans should be Christianized and westernized and adopting Western thinking, Western style of governments, really seeing Western civilization as the benchmark for human civilization and one that the black race should strive for in order to be considered equal to the rest of the world. So this idea was adopting Christianity and capitalism, which at this time was also during the Industrial Revolution. Whereas most American portrayals of the Zulus depicted Africans as permanent primitives, Zulu students shared the view that any African primitivism was due not to inherent inferiority, but due to a lack of exposure to the civilizing influences of Christianity and education. Once again, this idea that Christianizing and westernizing the African population was the way to uplift Black people across the globe. And this can still be affected today, where you have African spiritual belief systems such as voodoo, hoodoo, Ifa, Santeria, all being seen as demonic, all being seen as heathenistic, something that paganistic, something that should not be worshipped by African people. And that comes from not only Western stereotypes of Africa, but also from the classical Black nationalist perspective. I don't know if paganistic and heathenistic are words, but you get what I mean. Ironically, they pointed to recently emancipated African Americans as proof of Black capabilities. Thus, this article provides an empirical case study that offers a more expansive frame for African history, redresses the relative neglect of Africa and Africans within African diaspora studies, and contributes to the rich post-colonial literature that illuminates the cross-cultural transatlantic traffic of people's ideology images along the global color line. That is the abstract of this article. It's 20 pages long. I'm not going to read all that. So, like I said, you can go on JSTOR and you can further read this if it interests you. The next one deals with Hampton University. It's called the U.S. Zulu Connection. The Hampton Example by Clifton Hocker. I'm going to read some ways how I'm going to read the early part of it and you can read the rest of it. It is a long article, but I'm going to go over the basics. During the early 1900s, Hampton University, then called Hampton Institute, was a vital link to the transfer of art and culture between South Africa and the United States. Exchanges started then helped to shape South African history and live on in U.S. art and society to this day. That was a major theme of Global Zulu on April 11th focus series presentation of the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. Gary Van Wyk, a scholar of African art, traced how Hampton-educated Black South Africans carried Black progressive ideas back to their homeland and got involved in political and cultural movements that culminated in the overthrow of apartheid. Author of Pop Art, 50 Works of Art You Should Know, and the curator of Axis Gallery in New York, Van Wyk was active during the 1980s in the anti-apartheid resistance art movement. In his talk, he further showed how the iconic image of 19th century warrior King Shaka Zulu has inspired African Americans. For those who are not familiar, Shaka Zulu was an African military general. He was considered one of the greatest. He allowed the Zulu Empire to become formidable. He was greatly adept in his skill. He was fearless. He was focused. He was dedicated. He is one of the most iconic Africans to look up to. He's one of my favorite warriors, one of the few warriors that I think ranks high on the list, along with Queen Nzinga and as well as Sonia Ali. And furthermore, as you see with the HBCUs and Black liberation in Africa, we see there that these HBCU educated Black South Africans went there to dismantle apartheid. This was also the case where you had the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, graduated from an HBCU, and the first president of Nigeria went to an HBCU. So if you're from Nigeria, just so you know, HBCUs played a huge vital role in Nigerian independence, and is still doing it for current Nigerian immigrants that live in America today. In African American art history and among African American artists during the New Negro movement, many began to look at African art as an affirmation of identity and roots. And I think that point of view is something that's still enduring in many quarters of African American thought. I don't want to speak for that constituency because I'm not of it, but I think that African Americans can look to aspects of African culture and still find them inspirational. And that would include Zulu art, said Van Wyk. For example, one of the most vibrant aspects of Zulu in South African art are the amazing graphic patterns that we see in bedwork and murals. Since I did my doctoral work on Southern African women's murals, I know that in the traditional designs that I studied and published have been widely influential and replicated in school designs in Harlem, in murals in Harlem, even in design on telephone booths in Times Square in New York. They've inspired teachers in arts on the West Coast to build mud buildings, adobe, with mud murals designed that are inspired of South African women's art. So I think that the art has amazing ways of crossing cultures and crossing situations. And so Zulu art is there waiting to be viewed and discovered and enjoyed. Further down in the article, it says that Van Wyck observed several Zulu manifestations in American society and popular culture today. Those references to Zulu sources draw from their perceived strengths, but often descend into stereotypical depictions. Okay. So an example would be the Zulu Cannibal Giants were a baseball team in the 1930s that predated the Harlem Globetrotters as a comical enactment of athletics. They also called themselves the Zulu Tribe. Even in 2013, a major attraction of New Orleans Mardi Gras Parade continued to be the float of the Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club. They have also had reggae groups that called themselves the Zulu or were influenced by the Zulu. Finally, one of today's most dominant music genre has a Zulu link. And one man you should know about is a name, I cannot pronounce his name correctly in Zulu, Mantikane Kele. I know I cannot click, so to my South African brothers and sisters, y'all can help me on that. He was a Zulu South African who graduated from Hampton in 1912. He was the nephew of John Dobe, a leading Zulu intellectual educated by American missionaries, and he married an African-American woman, and he took her with him when he went back to South Africa. And also Dube became a founding president of the political party that later founded South Africa to democracy under Nelson Mandela. So this is just a brief overview. Like I said, that you can find this on irwa.museum.hampton.edu. Let me know what you think about this. If you're from South Africa, is this something that surprised you? Is this something you want to learn more about? Is this something that got your curiosity springing? Let me know what you guys think in the comments section.